Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I hope you're all safe and well. I hope you're all keeping busy but keeping out of mischief. As 2020 is clearly headed towards hell in a handbasket, I thought I'd do a couple of things to cheer myself up. The first was to buy a Baby Yoda t-shirt, and you know what? I feel a bit better already. The second was to buy a golden Seiko. I think there are three connected reasons behind the purchase of this one. It's an SNZH60 by the way. The first is that I don't own and never really have owned a gold tone watch. I've often maintained that gold tones suit darker skin tones better than lighter skin tones. I'm at my darkest in the Australian summer and I just missed the Australian summer. Let's see if the watch can hang around long enough for me to get a tan next year. The second is because the first video I made this year was a review of Mr. X's golden turtle and I really quite liked it. I thought it offered a heap of slightly gaudy blingy gold tones for not an awful lot of cash, and I was determined to get a Seiko in gold of my own. The third was I've already reviewed one of these Seiko SNZHs. I bought and sold at 57 towards the middle of 2018. I really liked it and I always felt I sold it too quickly. I didn't let it stick around in my collection perhaps as long as it should have, given how attractive the watch is. So I thought, what better excuse was there for me to have another go with the SNZH, but this time in glorious gold. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Straight in with the watch today. If this watch doesn't make you smile, then nothing will. Look at that thing. So the Seiko SNZH, known colloquially to its friends as the Seiko 55 Fathoms, because it does bear more than a passing resemblance to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and with a 42mm diameter, it has the same basic dimension set as the original 50 Fathoms did back in the 1950s. So how much did this one cost and where did I get it from? Well, I bought mine from Creation Watches in Singapore. I paid about 250 Aussie pesos, which is crashing by the day seemingly. If you are in the US, I suggest Amazon for just under 200, JOMASHOP for 190, or eBay is the cheapest today, around the mid 170s. I'll leave links to all of those in the description of the video. Taking it back a stage to the outer packaging, just a standard Seiko cardboard box here with instruction manual, warranty card and hang tag identifying the model number. Now this is the K1, meaning it comes from the Malaysian factory rather than the Japanese factory. I'm never quite sure that there is a difference. If you fancy the words made in Japan on the bottom of the dial, then please pursue the J1, but really I don't think it makes any difference with these basic Seikos. So 42mm in diameter, as I said, just over 14mm thick and just under 48mm lug tip to lug tip. One thing that Seiko always do so well is they keep this lug to lug relatively short, so even what is on paper kind of bigger than average, if 40 is average diameter dimension, watch wears much better than that diameter dimension might suggest. So even if you're a guy with slightly smaller wrists, I would suggest always have a go with a Seiko. Maybe try one on before you buy one, because you might be surprised with how well they wear. 22mm lug width, tapering down to just under 20, back up to just under 22 at the clasp, and sized up for me, 7-inch wrist. This one weighs in at 160 grams. So I talk about the kind of sports watch sweet spot at 150. I guess that makes sense. It's a 42mm watch, so slightly bigger watch, extra 10 grams. So stainless steel, gold coated. Now, no precious metals were harmed in the manufacture of this watch. You do not get gold for $175. You get a kind of gold coating. How good this watch looks in 2 years, 5 years time will very much depend on how often you wear this watch and how badly you treat it. If you're the kind of guy who's always scuffing and scratching and rubbing your watch against things, then maybe a gold toned, a gold kind of IP plated watch isn't going to suit you all that well as a consequence. So stainless steel bracelet as well. We have hollow end links, and we of course have the Seiko ubiquitous cheap and nasty press clasp here, but for this price I'm prepared to forgive these Seiko 5s quite a bit that I would normally be a bit more critical of. Another thing I'm prepared to forgive it is the fact that it's only Hardlex crystal. This is Seiko's own mineral crystal. I'm prepared to forgive it because it's a kind of box dome here, and you've got some fantastic vintage style distortions when you look at this one from the edges of the viewing angle. Similarly, that bezel insert is also hardlex, so just like the dial covering, the bezel insert is going to scratch as well. So again, do bear that in mind if you're a bit rough and tumble with your watches. Bezel action on this one is 120 click, unidirectional, rotating. Bezel action is a little bit light on. It's got a kind of nice Seiko standard notchy noise to it, but not the most convincing one I've seen. But then again, this isn't an out-and-out dive watch. It is very much a kind of dive style watch today. 100 meters of water resistance and no screw down crown. It's just a push-pull crown because this is a member of the Seiko 5 range. It doesn't have divers on the dial either. Case finishing is shiny, but it is pretty simple. High polished sides, unsigned crown, and we've got this kind of cog wheel style bezel. There is a little bit of brushing on the top of the lugs and some brushing on the bracelet. Now, the bracelet is masquerading as a 3-link, but it's actually just a single link here, and we have a push pin system only, rather than pin and collar, which you'll find on intermediate Seikos, and a screw link system, which is obviously more optimal than either. High polish on the side here as well. Now, there is a kind of step to those links. I'll show you with a single. Again, a little bit of polishing trickery, trying to make it look like this is a more complex piece of machining than it actually is. You do have a kind of satinized gold brushing on most of the bracelet, but just a little bit of high polish on the second half of those middle links. Clasp is all familiar, Seiko standard fare. Stamped logo in the fold over, double security pushers, and 4 levels of micro adjust. Popping a link in the bracelet to show you a screw down display case back. Again, that's just a mineral crystal, not sapphire on the back. An old friend, I have not seen one of these for a while actually, it's the SNZH60. This is the current kind of architecture of Seiko movements at its most Billy Basic. They've been making these since 1996. They must have made millions and millions of the things by now, surely. 23 jewel, non-hacking, non-hand winding. So you're doing the Seiko shuffle in this one, very much like you do on the other basic Seiko 5 models and on the SKX. But it does have the DeaShock system. They're fairly rugged and reliable and have been known to run for many, many years between services, though really there's an argument as to whether you're going to be servicing one of these watches or not if and when the time comes. Yes, well, I do guess you get what you pay for to an extent. Not the finest set of numbers I've seen from one of these 7S movements, to be honest, sitting there at plus 15, plus 17 seconds per day, with a slightly underwhelming amplitude and a slightly higher than normal beat error for a brand new box fresh watch. But like I said, that's not too bad for a daily. If you're that bothered, you can take the back off it, you can tweak it around. I'm sure you get it running close to 0 if this is going to be a daily. For me though, I probably won't bother with this one because it's going to be a bit of a weekender for me in the summer months. As such, this one is definitely more about the looks than the performance for me, and I think it looks great. Those are applied indices. The Seiko brand and the Seiko 5 logo, the kind of 5 in the shield there, are also applied, which is really quite nice for a watch from a big manufacturer at this price, and those indexes are just gorgeous, I think, as are the big sword handset, and we've got a really nice second hand with a bit of lume on there as well. Seiko's proprietary LumiBright, I'll put in the lume video here, always punches well above its weight. You know, not an expensive watch this one, but plenty of LumiBright on the hands and plenty of LumiBright on the insides of the indices. It does give it a slightly odd look after dark. It would be better if they had lumed the outside of the indices. It does make the watch look a bit small on your wrist, which it certainly isn't, but hey, that lume is okay for the cash. Oh, and no lume pip, because as discussed, this may look like a proper diver, but it isn't really a proper diver. Another feature that I really appreciate is the day-date complication and the fact that they've used a black date wheel, black day wheel, and a lovely gilt frame on that complication there as well. I think a really nice touch. I've looked at watches costing several times, you know, 4, 5, 6 times more than this. Manufacturers can't even be bothered putting a colour match date wheel, but I guess when you do everything in-house, you've got a bit of flexibility. You can specify a black one if you want to. And there it is, looking luxuriant on my 7-inch wrist. Now, it is quite a shiny one. You got a lot of shiny gold. You got a high polish on the sides of the case. case, you've got that double dome hardlex with no anti-reflective, and you have got a shiny hardlex bezel insert here. So legibility is not at a premium on this watch. That's not really what this one is designed for. You get a great look overall, I think, but you're not going to be as legible as you would get from an out-and-out dive watch. It's not bad though, is it? I mean, big handset, big dial, 42mm, maybe a little bit bigger than average, generally speaking, but don't expect SKX-like at-a-glance legibility. That's not really what this one's about. It's all about the gold tones, and that's what it looks like outside in some natural light in my garden. I have been a good boy. I haven't been straying much further than my garden given the restrictions that are in place on many of us at the current time. On wrist, those lugs point down, as I said, just under 48mm, so it wears very nicely indeed. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to get back to the studio, a rather grand name for my second bedroom, and I'm going to put this one on a waffle strap. So that's it on an Uncle Seiko waffle strap, and it looks great, very in keeping with the period, the kind of 1950s, the birth of the dive watch era. Only problem is that the collars don't match the cuff. I've got a few black buckle and tangs, so if I'm keen on wearing it on the waffle for long term, I'll do that swap. Problem with a gold tone watch is you're going to be limited. There aren't as many bracelet options if you want to buy aftermarket, and you're going to have to be careful, more careful anyway. I'm sure you can pick up buckles and tangs on eBay to fit various straps, but you don't really want to be spending a huge amount of money on a budget watch, so this one will probably be going back on the bracelet long term. So pros then, well, certainly not a particularly expensive way to add a little bit of bling, a little bit of gold tone to your collection if you are that way inclined. And that dial and handset, the bezel insert, all of it looks much more expensive than you would expect from a $175 watch. Seiko really have added some really nice details here with the applied logos, the applied indices, and that framed colour match date wheel, the hardlex bezel insert finishing the whole thing off. Cons, you get a basic movement in the back, no hacking, no hand winding, and the finish on this, I'm not sure how durable that is going to be long term, and it doesn't really look anything like gold, does it? It is very much gold toned, but not gold. Overall though, I'm quite impressed with this one. I did sell the SNZH rather hastily last time. Let's see if this one can last any longer than its predecessor. So there you have it, the SNZH60, my second crack at the SNZH, and my first crack at gold tones. Not gold, let's just be clear, gold tones. You don't get gold for 250 Aussie dollars. You probably don't get gold tone for 250 Aussie dollars if you abuse this watch. That coating is not going to stick around forever, so perhaps don't buy this one if it's going to be a beater. Do buy this one if it's going to be an occasional wear, bling bling beach watch. Roll on the summer. I'm looking forward to getting this Seiko out and about. Thanks for watching. I will see you soon.